Hi, and welcome to March 2021 of Patreon rewards video. So this is the third time that I've recorded this video. It's just been extremely excruciatingly difficult to make this video. I am actually really quite frustrated, but let's get started. Hopefully nothing goes wrong this time around and I'm able to actually finish the recording of this video without any more hiccups. So this month last month of February, I actually did quite a bit of work, considering how short the how much shorter February is. I actually finished quite a bit. So one of the things that I did was I started a new comic, but then the other thing that I did was stopped working on a comic and started doing some religious art. And the reason why I started doing religious art is because it's Lent. And so I decided for Lent, to give up of my drawing time to do something spiritual instead, something more religious in nature for Lent, so that I could get into that sacred headspace. And I'm going to be talking about some of the work I'm doing, and I'm going to show you why I found it's fascinating, and the symbolism and all this other stuff that goes into doing something like this. So let's begin with the comic. And with this time around with the comic, you're going to see that I finished. I only did the work in progress. It's just kind of rough placement of stuff. So I've gone so that I finished here, here, and here. So that's all the four panels, supposedly, so four panels that for the comic. And one of the things that I found excruciatingly frustrating doing this comic was doing the backgrounds. And the backgrounds are CG, which is there shouldn't be any problems except for the fact that it takes forever to render. So whenever I set up the camera inside the CG model, I then have to render it, and the rendering process takes forever. And then if the image or the background isn't quite right, isn't the way it doesn't work with my thumbnails, with my roughs, I gotta re-render, and I gotta readjust the camera, and I gotta go through the process again, and it just goes back and forth, and I was getting so frustrated doing that, especially because as I found out later, and especially in this shot, I needed like a wide shot of the background. I needed to be able to pull out as far as I can while still being able to see everything. But the problem is that this railing here is also on this side too, and when I pulled out, I was inside the railing and I couldn't get the shot, and then I needed to make sure. So it made me realize that I need to make the background, the CG background, destructible. I need to be able to actually grab certain sections and delete them so that I could pull the camera around wherever I need them, and that takes time, and I didn't have time, and so this is as close as I can get to the shot that I wanted, and it's working fine. But it took a long time of rendering and re-rendering and re-rendering before I got this shot where I wanted it to be. On top of that, I was having problems with the composition because of the word balloons. So I start putting in the word balloons at this stage, and this is exactly the reason why I put the word balloons at this stage, is because the word balloons need to read, like they need to flow, and they shouldn't be getting on top of each other, and they have to be read in a specific order. So you put the ones you want to be read first on top onto the first to the right, and then the second one right below it to the left, and then I mean to the left, the first one to the left, and then to the right, and so you because you read right left to right, and then you're going back. So they need to read that way. They can't be wherever. And on top of that, they need to have enough space, and you don't want to have these giant tails that point to the characters. You want them to feel natural and normal, so so they're not overlapping and wrapping around each other and stuff. And that's part of the problem that I was having, because originally these characters in the foreground were closer to the they were a little bit, the framing was a little bit over here, and then these characters were a little bit closer to these characters here, which left no room for word balloons to really breathe and interact, and it was just a pain. So this panel was such a huge headache. By the time I got to Lent and had to stop working on my comic, it was a bit of a relief because of how much of a headache it had been just to get to this point. So now, because I have been away from the comic for so long, I actually feel a lot better about going back to working on it. I'm much more excited about working on it. It's a good thing that I was able to take a break. Okay, actually, I'm going to talk about the postcard before I talk about anything of my Lenten drawings here, and then who ends up winning this postcard. So this is the postcard for this month. Here it is. Here is the postcard, and if you notice, it's a little bit more of back to basics, back to something to the type of watercolor paintings that I was doing when I first started experimenting with watercolor. And part of the reason why is because I started, there was something about the last couple of watercolor pieces that I've been working on that that seemed like I could do better. There's something I'm missing, something I lost. Let's go back to basics, see what it is that I'm doing wrong. That if I could recapture, I should say. And if you so here's the thing. Recently, for the last, I don't know, 10 postcards or so, I don't remember. The way that I've been approaching doing these postcards is I do a wash, and then a gradient wash, and then I do local colors, and then I put in the shadows. But that wasn't the way I started doing them when I first started. When I first started doing watercolor paintings of any kind, I would do the drawing, and then I would put in the shadows, and then I would put in local color afterward, in the light areas. The thing that is that seems to give me way more control, while doing it the other way around gave me less. And I think I need to find a good right balance between the two, somewhere in between what I'm doing here and what I was doing like 2 weeks ago. So I don't know what that is yet, but I'm figuring it out. So I went back to basics, a little bit more traditional, a little bit more of what I used to do. The difference between what I used to do and what I did this time with this postcard, if you notice, there is a line here, and I still have I used my colored inks in here, so you could see the colored inks here, and that was the biggest difference. And I think that's a good marriage in between the two methods. I still have that sharp, I still have the ink line in there, and I think I like that. I think there's something about that I like. I just needed to be judicious about where I put and left the line art. And it does get slightly covered up by the watercolor, but that's okay. I don't mind that, but I do like that there is some line in here, and it's not a bad thing. I really like it. So who won this month's postcard? Eric Prestaman. Eric, congratulations. I think you've won a few postcards. This is yet another. So congratulations on winning this month's postcard, Eric Prestaman. All right, so let's take a look at the Lenten artwork that I've been doing. So inspired by Eastern Orthodox kind of iconography, there's something that fascinates me about this kind of look. There's something about the design of the whoops, not this, but these kinds of icons that appeals to me. But at the same time, I also find that these kinds of icons are extremely ugly. I find them both beautiful and extremely ugly. And And the idea here behind these kinds of things is that supposedly the reason why they have this look is deliberate, so that you're not supposed to. It's not meant to be representational. It's supposed to be otherworldly. It's supposed to be different. It's supposed to look like something other, so that because it's supposed to represent something outside of the earth, heavenly, different, that is beyond. Beyond this plane of existence, kind of a thing. So that's kind of why. And the thing about these kinds of icons is that you have that they have a specific process, a specific thing that needs to be done when you make them. So you have to use very specific materials. For example, wood. Wood would be one material you should do the paintings on. You should do it with oil paintings. You gesso the wood in a very specific way, and then when you do the actual image, you have to follow like a template, like a specific template of with a specific type of face, and that's what you paint over. That's why they all kind of look the same. They're kind of they kind of all use a very specific template, so that they all kind of look the same. Okay, so and then and on top of that, there's a ritual that goes into it. Well, you have to go to reconciliation, and then you have to go to communion, go to church, and you have to say a very specific prayer before you do the icon, and it's a ritual that you got to do. So I did do some of that ritual. I did go to reconciliation, and I go to mass every Sunday anyway, and so I took communion, and I did do the prayer before I started, but my thing, what I'm doing here, is not a Eastern Orthodox icon, because I am not following the template, nor am I using the materials, nor did I do all the other stuff. So it's inspired by, without being an icon. I can't say that it's an Eastern Orthodox icon, because I didn't do all the things. You have to do all the things for it to be official, because it's a very sacred art. Okay, so but I did do a lot of homework outside of that, and the thing is, you cannot deviate from the design. That's the entire point. So I wanted to deviate from the design. I wanted to do my own thing, and that is not allowed if you're doing an Eastern Orthodox icon. So I deviated from the design, and so I'm doing my own thing, still being inspired by the icon. On top of that, I wanted to do something that meant something. So I chose the examples that I showed you were of the Christ Pantocrator icon. And that icon is holding a Bible, because he is the teaching Christ. That's what it means when he's holding a Bible. Okay, so I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. And inspired by that type of icon. So I'm going to have him hold the Bible, and I'm going to have him do all the things, hold his hand the way it's supposed to be, and all the symbology all around it. So I needed to learn what all that meant anyway. So I'll explain to you what that means. But first, I also wanted to think, and I wanted to get into the headspace of a religious artist. For example, a Roman Catholic artist in the Middle Ages or in the Renaissance. And they had very, very specific symbology in their painting before they even began doing anything. When they were composing their paintings, they composed their paintings based off of sacred geometry. That meant that the underlying foundation underneath the painting would look like an abstract modern painting, but or foundation, but of geometric shapes. And each geometric shape inside the composition on which they would paint on their painting on meant something. There was the geometry meant something symbolic and theological. And I didn't know any of it. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to find out what shapes. I did know some, and there's so. But anyway, what shapes and what they meant, so that I could be clear. So when I did it on purpose. So that's what I. So I went over and I did my homework. So I'm going to show you the file. So here is the file. All silver patrons are going to get this file, so that they could check all my roughs and all and how it was all composed. But that's not what I'm going to show you here. What I'm going to show you here is the underlying foundation that I used in order to make this drawing. And so there was a lot of experimenting that I did in my sketchbook. So before I even get into the underlying composition and stuff, I just wanted to very quickly show you the different designs and ideas that I had just for the face, because I just didn't want the face to look like this. I wanted it to look a little bit more. I just wanted it to look prettier. That's really what it was. So this was my first attempt, and with a pointy beard, and there's something about the eye. They just look so. I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. It just wasn't what I was looking for. And then I tried over here. This one was much more what I was looking for. All this was done in ballpoint pen. So there's no take backs. You just do it, and then whatever comes out that's what. And I actually ended up liking this, and I like the way that the head shape ended up. And it's very strange. I will talk about this later, but it ended up being just the right shape here. But then I was doing all these kind of sketchy drawings of how I'm going to draw the hand, how I'm going to have him hold the book, and then here. So this was okay, but I was kind of happy with this. But I'm like, it doesn't hurt to try another one. So I did. I tried this one, but moving all the body parts up higher, I just didn't like the way it looked. And he actually looks like a cat. I didn't want him to look like a cat. And then here's another kind of a shape. I didn't like the way that one looked either. So I stuck with something a little bit. I said, this is it. This is the one. Here I was trying to force a geometric shape in here, the triangle, which means Trinity. Here we have this kind of a vagina shape. I'm going to actually talk about this. It's not actually a vagina shape, but it can, if you look at it that way, you'd see it that way. But it's actually two circles put together, and then they come together here, and then we have triangles here. So I was already trying with the sacred geometry, because triangles for the Trinity, right? But then there's much more, like squares and stuff, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. So let me talk about it now. Here is the underlying composition that I ended up going with. So this is very fancy looking, and it's interesting because just looking at this, it just kind of makes you want to play in it. There's a lot of fun things and shapes going on here, but this mass of shapes is actually very, very symbolic. So here's what the symbolism means, and here's the sacred geometry and how it works, and what I'm thinking when I was doing this, because I put a lot of thought into all this stuff. So this sphere here, and then this sphere. There's two spheres, but the sphere itself represents God. God is eternal. It goes around and around and around. So that's the circle represents God. So the heavenly. So we have the halo here, which is also a circle. And then we have the triangle, which is boom, boom. Here's a triangle right here. It's much clearer here. You can see that there's a triangle right there. And that triangle, of course, represents the Trinity. And then I actually put a triangle here, and I put a triangle here, and I put a triangle here, which is what makes this very unique kind of pointy stuff going on. And it creates this kind of a star shape, which is kind of interesting. And I didn't mean for it to be there, but once it was there, I was like, wow, that looks cool. And then here we have the two intersections of the two spheres. not spheres, but circles, and it makes this belly of the fish. So that's what it is. It's kind of like the when you've seen them in the Christian fish where it's kind of like that, right? And that's the fish shape, right? And by the way, if you're curious, the fish was also something during the Christian persecution. Christians would identify each other by drawing half the fish, and then the other person would draw the other half of the fish if they were Christian, and that's how that was the way that you identified whether you were a Christian or not. And the reason why fish, by the way, it's because I believe the word fish in Greek, the first two words of the words fish in Greek are the same two letters of the word Christ in Greek. So I'm not quite sure, but it's something like that. It has something about the word fish and the words for Christ, the first two letters of Jesus Christ. There's a correlation between those two, and that's why fish. But anyway, so we have the belly of the fish here, and the belly of the fish contains here Jesus, and then here the bottom of the fish shape is where we have the sleeves. And then here at the bottom of this triangle here is the pointy shape of the body. And then so we have, and then this, his body in and of itself, this body shape here, this is a square. And so is this, by the way. Here we have a big square here that's containing the entire picture. And the square represents earth, the earthly. So Christ and his body is of earth. So he's got a human body, but he is contained within the circle, which means that he's God. So God, man, earth. That's and then we've got the cross here. Okay, so here we have this shape here, and again, this shape was a bit of an accident. Not a bit of an accident. I started designing the shape. I just kind of liked the hair shape. When I first drew it, I drew it like this, and then I did it like this. But it turns out that it kind of fits an octagon shape, right? It's an octagon. Why the octagon? What's the octagon mean? The octagon is the symbol of the 8th day. So the new day. So we've got the first 6 days of creation, and then the 7th day he rested, and then the 8th day is the new creation, the new day. Jesus resurrected the 8th day. That's the salvation day, right? So that's and it turns out that that the hair fits in an octagon, which is so now you know the secret of the head shape. All right. So then let's talk about these letters and these. So Pantocrator. Pantocrator means, for all you My Hero Academia fans, it means all might. So Pantocrator, all might or almighty. We have this ICXC. So I'm not sure why it's written in just regular letters instead of Greek letters, because the Greek letters are not these, but they are. I'm going to assume that it's using the Latin. It's the Greek word written in Latin. So, but the IC represents the first two letters of Jesus, and the XC is the first two letters of Christ. So these IC and XC mean Jesus Christ. That's what these represent. I'm not 100% sure why they're not in Greek. They should be in Greek. Not sure why they're not in Greek, but that's what they mean. IC, XC means Jesus Christ. So Jesus Christ Almighty or All Might. And then here we have these letters here, which I'm not 100% sure this is Greek either. This should be Omega, but it's often just the W being put in here. And this here means he who is. He who is. So the first letters of he who is. That's what this means here. These these letters here, the O kind of W with these things. I'm not 100% sure these are Greek. Like I said, I don't know exactly why they're not quite Greek, but the Pantocrator. So Jesus Christ Almighty, He who is, and that's what all that means. And again, holding the Bible means He's teaching Christ. And then here, this hand, the way that it's shaped here, this is Him making these letters. So we have the I and the C. So this is the first two letters of Jesus, right? So he's making the IC symbol here. That's why he's holding his hands like this. And that's it. That's what I've got. So the rest I'm gonna so this is just the line work. Then I'm going to have to color it. And the color also is very, very symbolic. Gold, blue, white, reds, like all these colors are going to be in here. So I still got to finish it. Hopefully I'm not going to destroy the painting or once I do it, because I'm happy where I'm at right here, but I might kill it when I put the color on. So just gonna keep working on it, see if how it turns out. I'm very nervous about kind of going through the rest, because I kind of like it at this stage, and hopefully I just don't destroy it. But I found it absolutely fascinating to work within this kind of pre-existing just hodgepodge of geometric shapes, because it kind of it was very exciting to work within the confines of all this symbolic language and geometry. Okay, so thanks so much. Hopefully you learned something. I sure as heck learned something. I thought it was really, really fascinating to really look into this thing, and I'm having a lot of fun making it. But it's also, again, it's a very meditative thing for me too, and having to go through some of that ritual of having to go to reconciliation and go to mass and think about this stuff, and then going into it and doing the prayer and then working through it, and it adds so much more meaning to doing the drawing. It's odd because I don't often do this, and I don't do this enough. I only do this during Lent. But I couldn't help feeling that this was what I was made to do. So am I running away from my vocation? I don't know. Maybe. So we'll see. So, all right. So this, thanks a lot for watching. And I will, thank you so much for your support. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll talk to you next time. All right. Bye.